I want to give thanks to Lady J.B. Owen and the entire Ignite team. Gatherama 2024 would not be happening if it was not for them. So thank you, massive thanks for bringing people together from so many different countries. It really is an honor. But here's the thing though, right? You know, everyone that stays in the US or everyone that travels to Las Vegas always have the saying. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Not in my books, not at all. I'm coming all the way from South Africa. I spent 23 hours flying time alone, except sitting at the lounge or wherever. And I got here, so you think I'm not going to shout this out to the world? I want the world to know that I can enter a global stage and inspire the audience, impact the audience, and that's exactly what I'm going to do today. So my talk is called Be the Best Version of Yourself. And I'd like to take you back to the 27th of August, 2022. I got up to 5,400 meters. I felt my chest tighten up. It was almost like my heart was going to stop beating. You see, I was climbing the highest mountain in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro, the largest freestanding mountain in the world. And when I got to this distance, I had 5 deaf people with me. And I had made a promise that I will take them up this glorious mountain. So at 5,400 meters, I called my Sherpa, my guide, and I said to him, not to worry, I got this. Let me go a little longer. And that little longer was 4 baby steps like this. And I said to myself, Nolan, your life is more important. The mountain will be here, but your life is more important. But I was also concerned about the 5 deaf climbers that I had with me. So I said to him, here's a sign language interpreter. I want you to try as much as possible to allow their dreams to become a reality as well. But if any one of them struggles, please send them down, because I am still responsible for their life. And lo and behold, 2 of them came down and the other continued to climb the mountain. So how many of you here are climbing mountains in your life? We all are, right? Every single time. So when you set yourself a goal, is the goal only to get to the top of the mountain? Or is the goal to impact lives along the way? Living some purpose-driven life. Because once you summit that mountain, there's going to be another one, and another one, and another one to climb. And before you realize it, we would have climbed so many mountains in our lives, and so many goals would have been achieved by this time as well. And that's what allows us to become the best version of ourselves. We have pain, we have obstacles, we have challenges throughout our lives. What do you do when you have a painful moment? Like your heart is almost stopping. You want to continue, right? Because that painful moment or that obstacle or challenge makes us stronger as human beings. That builds our resilience. And it could be a split second that we will say, okay, I'm going to stop and give up on this. So as I continue with my presentation, I want you to observe a few things in my talk today. The first one is, everything starts with a thought or an idea. But what happens when we have this fabulous thought or idea? Many people just act to it, right? But it's not so. What we need to do is, whenever we have this thought or idea, we need to get emotionally attached to it. Because when we get emotionally attached to it, it allows us to take action. But not just any action, inspired action to get the desired results that we want. So I'm going to take you back to Nolan Pillay as a 10-year-old entrepreneur. That's where my business journey started off. That's what got me these billions. That's what's getting me my billions. So I started off as a 10-year-old boy, waking up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning together with my siblings and going out with our basket in hand, carrying Indian delicacies that my mom used to make. Some of you may know a thing called a samosa. It's a triangle with some filling in it. So I've got this in hand together with my siblings, and we are going from one house to the next, selling these Indian delicacies. But here's the rule of life back then. If you did not make a sale, it was very simple. You did not have money to buy food to cook for that afternoon. So you had to get to bed on an empty stomach, but not really empty, because you could have a glass of water and still go to bed. And there were days like that as well, where it was really tough for us, and we ended up 2 days sometimes without a meal. It was all about survival. I remember days of going to school with no jersey on a cold day or no shoes on a rainy day. My bones felt like it was going to break off. It was almost brittle, but it was part of the life that we grew up with. Now, I don't talk about my poverty life just to make you feel sorry for me. Not at all. I want you to learn from what I actually had gone through. And one of my goals in South Africa is to change people's mindset from this poverty mindset. Because in Africa alone, the stats say there's about 63% of people living in poverty. So imagine if you can help 5% with a mindset shift to stop thinking the victim, the self-pity mindset, and get out of it. I got out of it. What's different from me and anyone else? Everyone can get out of it. So anyway, that was a 10-year-old boy. Let's forward wind to 1989, when I finished my, I think some of you may call it metric year, or grade 12, or last year of your high school. So, at this time, I was really, really good in school. Or I thought I was good in school. Academically, well, the reason why I thought that was I actually had a double promotion. From grade 1, they moved me to grade 3. Imagine that. I was so chuffed that, wow, this is a bright student. He really knows what's really happening. And with my sports-wise, I was doing really well. I was Sportsman of the Year for 5 years in a row. So I was a sound person at that time, or I thought, up until I write my metric exams. So it was a few weeks. It starts off in November, beginning of November. It goes towards like the end of November. And everything went well. I was confident. I had studied. We formed study groups. We did everything right at the time. And we go to results day. How many of you, back in the day, your results did not come on your mobile or on an email or anything, right? We had to go to the local newspaper office and wait till midnight for the print to come out, and then you collect it. So anyway, results day, we were all excited, and well, as a 17-year-old boy back then, with the excitement, you'll have a few beers and you'll go with your friends because you're really excited, you're chuffed, you're going to pass this. So I go to the newspaper office with my friends. We wait till just after midnight. The guy comes along, he gives us our newspaper, we give him some cash, and I start going through it now, looking for my name on there. And it's strange, because my name is not there. So I call my friend Clive over and I say to him, Clive, please check why my name is not in the paper. And he goes through it again, and he says, no, it's not there. Wow, I go cold. So many thoughts are going through my mind, because if your name is not in the newspaper, it simply means you failed. So in my depressive state, my sad state, I decide, let me be bold and go back home and go to the school the next morning. So that early hours of the morning, I could hardly sleep, because this is on my thought that something has gone wrong. So I get to the school the next morning, and I go to the principal's office, and I say, Mr. So-and-so, what is going on? I don't see my name in the newspaper. So by this time, I gather that he knows that I failed, but he's trying to lighten the blow on me. And he's going through the papers like this, almost to say, well, maybe your name was there, there's a possibility. And he comes back to me and he tells me that I've failed. It's like a stab through my heart at this point. I was so disappointed. Tears running down my cheek. I turn my back and I start to walk home. So you see, home was about 250 to 300 meters away from the school. And there's only one thought on my mind: to end my life. When I think about it now, the reason for me wanting to do that was, apart from me just failing, I was also too embarrassed, because I lived in a close-knit community, and people talk, people judge you, people call you names. And I was called that. I was called a failure. They looked down on my family, etc. So I knew all of this was going to happen. So I go home, and I go into the medicine cabinet, and I take a whole lot of pills. And I wake up the next morning in the hospital with something really, really salty on my lip. So if you've ever been exposed to this, they give you some, like a saline drip that's very salty, that allows you to bring up all this medication that you took in. And while feeling this or tasting this on my lip, the questions come in. Why did you do this? Why were you so stupid? That's such a dumb thing to do. This, that, etc. And I keep explaining why I actually did it. But I also realized that God was on my side. It was not my time to die. My purpose was not being fulfilled at that point. So I get out of that situation, and that very same year, 1989, my friend, the same friend Clive, his dad worked in a factory. And I said to him, you know what? Can you speak to your dad and see if I can get some type of employment? He says, okay, I'll speak to my dad. And he came back to me almost like the next day, and he said, Dad says, come there at 5 a.m. in the morning outside this factory, and he'll see what he can do. Now, without a metric certificate, it's very difficult to get in a job. Chances are 0 that you would get in. So I rock up there at 5 a.m. on the Monday morning, and I realize I'm not the only one here. There's another about 100 people. So anyway, I waited out. I see his dad come down, and he picks 10 people. And guess what? I am not one of those 10. So I hang in there a little longer, and I wait till about 7:30 a.m. He comes back down, and he picks 5 people. I am one of them. Wow. So much of gratitude is flowing within me, because now I can earn some money as a person without a metric certificate. So I'm grateful for that. He takes me in, he introduces me to the supervisor, and he says, this is your supervisor. The supervisor says, well, Nolan, this is your job. You're going to sweep the floor, you're going to mop the floor, and when you're done with that, at the end of this production line, you're going to take the soup and pack it into boxes. And that's exactly what I did for about 6 months. And something happened between the 6th and 7th month during one of my night shifts. It was almost like a voice in my head asking me the question, Nolan, is this where you want to be for the rest of your life? And the answer was almost immediately no. The next question came in, what are you going to do about it? And I said, well, maybe I can work longer hours. And by working longer hours, it allows me to earn a little more cash and invest in myself. And that's exactly what I did. By me doing a diploma, various things within the field, it allowed me to grow within that company. Grow to the point that I was no more a packer and a sweeper. I became a machine operator, then a stores clerk, a production planner. Eventually, at the very same company, it was a technical engineering buyer. Why? When that thought came in, what are you doing about it? I made the decision to do something, to study it. And that's how it actually went. So I worked there for a bit, up until the year 2019, when I was reporting to the New York office for one of the biggest corporates in the world. I was traveling the world, enjoying the perks of meeting different nationalities, different people, etc. Just having fun, earning a good salary as well. But what I did not realize was that in 2019, we could still be exposed to racist behavior and inhumane behavior. When this started happening to me in June 2019, I needed to understand why is it happening. So again, I started questioning myself. Maybe there's a message in this. Maybe this is not where I need to be in the corporate world. So that inhumane behavior actually linked up to me as a 10-year-old boy being exposed to inhumane conditions. And I thought, well, there's an answer in this. Maybe I should do something for humanity. And the more I said it to myself, do something for humanity, the more it became clear that that is my life's purpose. So I left the corporate world in June 2019. September 2019, my company, Straight Talk with Nolan, was running from 2015. But I did not do anything to it because I was too comfortable in corporate. There was no need to dwell further into it. But when I left in June 2019, I relaunched it in September 2019, and I had 3 deaf people come and speak at the launch of my company. Yes, 3 deaf people. I had sign language interpreters helping people like myself who could not sign. And the late Mrs. Ketiwe Madi asked a question to my audience and I that hit me so deep that it increased my why levels. And she asked this question: what if all of you here cannot hear, and I am the only one that can hear? Who is the one with the disability? That's a person asking hearing people. And there were so many thoughts and ideas that were going through my mind at the time, and I wondered, what could I do to impact the deaf community? What could I do to make a difference to them? And amongst these thoughts was, do something so extreme that other people will be inspired to join you or to sponsor your mission. And out of this came a project called Climb for the Deaf. What is Climb for the Deaf, you may ask? Climb for the Deaf was to take 5 people up the highest mountain, making their dreams a reality. The second part was to raise as much funds as possible and give the gift of hearing to children that are born deaf. The third part was to have workshops with the deaf and hearing people so that we can start bridging this gap. So that was the project. It was set, and we said 2020 we're going to climb this mountain. But come January 2020, we all know what happened, right? The world shut down. We could not travel. We couldn't do anything. So we had to move the project out into 2021. Come 2021, the same story. We were going to do it in August, but we still could not travel. But something else happened in 2021. In January, I was out walking with my wife, and I tasted some chemicals on my lip. You see, I live very close to an airport, and when the planes land, they often dump their fuel to lighten the load so that they can land. So I thought it was the chemicals lingering in the air, and it got onto my lip. So brave me, got home, and for 8 days, I stayed in this condition. But what I didn't realize was my body was deteriorating really rapidly. 8 days later, my family saw me crouched like this at the back, my wife and my son, and they immediately rushed me to the hospital. I get to the hospital, they put me onto the oxygen, and the doctor comes, he does his checks, etc. He looks at my wife and my son, and he shook his head, almost to say, like, this guy is not going to make it. At this time, my oxygen levels were 58%, and that got me to stay in the intensive care unit for 13 days. But when the doctor shook his head, I made a decision. I looked at my wife and my son, and I said to them, don't worry, I'm going to walk out from this hospital. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to fight this. So there was a lot of trauma that was going on in the hospital. Wow, and 40 minutes go so quickly. So there was a lot of trauma that was going on. People were dying on a daily basis. You know it because you see the bed being wheeled across with the head being covered, and you always wonder, when is your turn? So imagine you have to fight all of this. On day 6, something happened where there was a doctor that was opposite me, and he was on the ventilator. I refused to go on the ventilator because I did not want any machine controlling me. I wanted to fix this with my mind, on my own. Yeah. So when the... Okay, so we still at 20 minutes? Oh, okay, sorry, I got a bit worried there. So on day 6 was this doctor that was pulling out all these cords, and he was actually falling onto the floor, begging to die. Now this is a doctor who's meant to save lives, but he's crying out to die. And it started playing on my mind at that time. So I pulled through the night. The next morning, I woke up, and I looked, and I couldn't find the doctor. So I asked the nurse, where's the doctor? And she said he passed the night before. I went cold. I started crying a lot. because I kept thinking about this doctor that should be saving our lives. I contacted my family and I said to them, I can't do this anymore. It's just too hard. I get goosebumps just speaking that line. My family motivates me and they try their best to say, well, don't worry, you can fight this. I'm still not convinced. Up until my daughter did something very special. She took a copy of this. This is called my goal card. Thank you to our legend, Mr. Bob Proctor, for teaching me the goal card technique. This has all my goals, all my purpose, everything on this card. And I carry it with me every single day because I want to be reminded about what I still need to do on this earth. So she took a copy of it, she sent it to my mobile, and she said, Dad, don't forget what your purpose is. Immediately, I needed to snap out of this victim, this self-pity mindset, and start working on my build, my rebuild. I upped my affirmations. There were so many prayer groups that were happening. Bobby Layton, that's here, was one of the, we know each other for 4 years. She started a prayer group as well throughout the world. And I was so surprised that people that I never meet personally were praying for me. And all of this energy, I was receiving it back. I started visualizing myself getting out of the intensive care unit and going into a normal ward, from the normal ward to the waiting car, and finally back home. And it happened just like that. But something else also happened on day 7. I could barely breathe. I was battling to breathe. And I recorded a video in about 4 videos in 10 to 15 second snippets. And in the video, I was advising people or asking people to protect themselves, wash their hands, do the necessary so that they don't get COVID. I had COVID pneumonia. Sorry. So I had COVID pneumonia, and I posted this video onto my social media. A whole lot of people started seeing it and commenting because they wondered when Nolan had disappeared too. But there were 2 female friends that said to me, Nolan, the world needs to hear your story. So I asked them, how would the world hear my story? One of them suggested, write a book. Now, I've never been an author. I've never aspired to be an author. It was not on my plan, not at all. But the fact that they said the world needs to hear your story got me thinking that maybe I should write about my experience. Maybe I should write about how my dignity was stripped. While I was in ICU, I could not brush my teeth. I could not do anything. The nurses, these earth angels that we have, had to bathe me. They looked after me in such a way that helped me to get out of that hospital. So as I visualized it, I eventually was taken out of the ICU and I spent 1 day in the ward. The next day the doctor said I could go home, but there was a condition. I needed to be on this oxygen tank for a month. So imagine now you got this oxygen thing in your nose, through your nose, and you have to carry this tank around with you 24/7 for a whole month. So I did it because I knew that at home I'm going to be comfortable and it will help me on my healing journey. So I got home and I started to do that. I started to walk around my yard, go in front of the trees, smell the fresh oxygen, and I felt I was getting better and better. So after about 3 days, I could manage 1 hour without the oxygen tank. And I increased it to 2 hours, to 4 to 8 hours. And then on my second week, I said to my wife, you know what, I'm going to take a chance and sleep without this oxygen. And guaranteed I will wake up the next morning. And that's exactly, I woke up the next morning and my chest felt a bit tight. I took a bit of oxygen and I said to her, you know what, the only way I'm going to recover faster is if we do not have this oxygen tank next to me. So we phoned the oxygen company and I said to them, please come and take this oxygen away and give it to somebody who needs it more than me. I'm going to be fine. So I started training myself, training my mind. I started walking around the yard. And I must say, around this time, I'm walking around the yard, I'm building up steps. In the hospital, I could barely take 10 steps. When I was admitted, I had climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 2019. So I was fit, I was strappy, etc. So what COVID did to me was it made me skin on bones. Now I've got some meat, so I'm grateful for that. But it really did something to my body that made me start appreciating myself more as a person. So much more that I'm now dedicated 2024 to self-love. So anyway, got out of hospital and I decided to write the book. It took me 3 months and I wrote this book called My COVID Journey, Mind Hacks and Techniques That Got Me Through It. Now this book wasn't written to make money, although we do like to make money. But there were two intentions of this book. One was to share with those people that lost loved ones because of COVID, to make them understand what a COVID patient goes through so that they can reach peace and closure in their lives. And the second part was to share mind hacks and techniques that got me through it as well. So it's not a bestseller, but it has impacted so many people that gave me the feedback. So we're now in 2021, the latter part of 2021, and everything is going well. We now had changed the date to August 2022 to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with the 5 deaf people. So the year goes well. I'm training. I'm doing more mountain training as well, really doing extremely well. Come December 2021, I go to the hospital thinking my lungs have collapsed. Because when I was admitted, my lungs were worse than a smoker, and I don't smoke. So we go to the hospital, they do various tests, and the one blood test they do should have been about between 14 to 17. My reading showed 649. So they said to me, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Pillay, you've just had a mild heart attack. I said, what? Do you know how old I am? I'm young. I don't need a heart attack. Anyway, they took me into this room. They did an angiogram, and they put 3 stents into me. And this is December 2021. And I'm still focusing on this goal that we got planned of taking 5 deaf people up this mountain in August, which is 9 months away. So we do that. I get the stents. I come home. December, I just laid at home. I didn't do anything. Come January, I started training together with the deaf people again, and we said we're going to go up this mountain. And 9 months later, we get up to the mountain. At 5,400 meters, I stopped my journey because I realized the mountain will be there. But here's what's special about this. 3 deaf climbers' dreams became a reality because we held on to the goal. Like anything in life, we set goals and there'll be challenges, obstacles along the way, but do not forget your goal. Always keep it in mind. We were able to help 5 children live a normal life. 5 children. The oldest being a 15-year-old girl. And they invited us to all of these fitments. So we went, and I'll tell you the story about the 15-year-old girl. So the audiologist told us exactly what the procedure was going to be, what was going to happen. She said after she implants the hearing aids, she'll do some tests, and within about 5-10 minutes, this child would be able to hear again. Imagine for 15 years of your life, you're not hearing, and suddenly you got this gift. And I remember this moment so clearly. Her mom, who was on the left of me, looked at her child and said, "Hello, Kwazi." And Kwazi immediately turned to her mom and said, "Hello, Mama." Wow. We all burst into tears. It's a moment that I will treasure forever. I will not forget the look on that face. And that is why I will climb the mountain as long as I'm living, every single time, just to see the smile on another human's face. That is fulfilling for me. That's allowing me to live a purpose-driven life. The third part of the goal was to start having workshops with the deaf and hearing people. And we started having workshops and started bridging the gap. Do you know anyone who's deaf? You communicate with them, Eric? Or you try to communicate with them? Please do that. It's such an amazing community. They're human like us. They just have a disability. And what I realized with the deaf people, they're just like us that can hear. You know, when we say goodbye to family members or friends that come and visit us, we'll say goodbye in the lounge. We'll say goodbye at the door. We'll say goodbye while we're walking towards the car, at the gate, eventually till we say finally goodbye. That's exactly what they do. They're such a sweet bunch of people. So yeah, that dream that started off in 2019 became a reality in 2022 August. Apart from that, we run a non-profit organization. It's called Be the Best Version of Yourself. That's exactly what my talk is about. Now, I've never been this person that I am today, standing in front of you and speaking. I've had my own negative energies around me as well, up until I decided or made that decision to change, to become a better person. And that is why I advocate for becoming the best version of yourself. Now, how many people out there that are really struggling and don't know how to become better in life? A lot of people, right? But all it takes is that decision that they need to make, that they want to become better. They just need to think about what they want to do to make an impact to the world and just focus on that. So back to the foundation, the way we see life at the moment is, and this applies to all of you guys that have businesses as well. So I don't know whether you have two phases in your business, but I believe in two phases. One is you have the profit company that gets you money in to survive, and the second part is the non-profit leg. And this is where you serve others. So you could use the same energy, the money that's coming in from here, and fund your non-profit. Because if I look at every single one of you that are here today, you are not just here because you wanted to come and just spend the day. You are connected to like-minded people. You want to make an impact in the world. You want to make a difference. That is why you come to conferences like this, to listen to other people and understand what they are doing. So if you don't have this set up in your business, I would suggest do something similar to it. So with the foundation, our first project actually started in 2019 when we did climb the mountain, but back then we were climbing for girls in rural areas to have access to sanitary pads. Something that we believe, if a person cannot afford it, it should be free. Because most governments, like the one in South Africa, they are too good to put condoms in the male bathrooms, but not sanitary pads in the female toilets. And that doesn't work well. It should be the other way. So that was 19, and we said every 2 years we're going to do something different. This year, we are climbing again in August, but we're doing it for cancer. You've lost people with cancer? We all have, right? The youngest in my family was 12 years old, and I watched him wither away slowly. And I've lost aunts that I saw become skin on bone as well. But we don't want it to say the word cancer all the time, because if we put the word cancer out there all the time, we're going to attract more of that. We'd rather go with the approach of awareness around cancer, because the more awareness we can create out there, the more people know what it actually does. And there are ways of people being healed from it. The second part is mental wellness. Mental wellness is something that affects all of us. And sorry to say this, but a lot of men, we don't talk about our mental health state, right? Because we still have this thing about we're macho and we don't have feelings and stuff. And it's not just because of only that, because the moment we start breaking down and talking to our female spouses or to a female other, what they do is they kind of judge you. And they kind of say, well, stop being like a sissy and, man up and whatever. And that's one of the reasons why men don't talk about these things. But the more we can advocate for mental wellness and speak about it amongst ourselves, the more it's going to be easier for us to live our lives as well. And the third part of the climb for this year is something that we call a community skills village. So you see in South Africa and Africa as well, we have a problem where a lot of our youth have this mindset of entitlement. A lot of them have this mindset that I should only be on social media all the time. They thrive on likes and comments, etc. Because nobody is taking the time to work with them and help groom them. Now, every one of you would agree, we need the youth of today more than ever. Because if we are not working with them, how are we going to live better lives? We need them. We need these strong leaders as well. So the emphasis has to be on the youth. You would have seen in your goodie bags there's a flyer like this that says Adopt a Youth. So if you are keen on getting involved, please have a look at this flyer in your spare time. There's a QR code there. You can scan it and get in touch with us as well if you want to be involved. But my question to every one of you is, what are you doing to impact humanity? How are you going to make a difference before you leave this earth? Thanks, Judy. So think about it. What's going to allow you to live a purpose-driven life? I just want to leave you with that thought. But before I end there, there's something I read a couple of days ago. And this goes back to the challenges and obstacles that we all experience in life. And this quote was so profound by Rumi. And it said, "The cure for pain is in the pain." How profound is that? The cure for pain is in the pain. So what he's saying basically is, you got to go through the pain to become better and better and better. Nobody's going to have an easy ride like this. It's not going to be a straight line. It's always going to be like this. Obstacles, all challenges, etc. If you look at my lifeline, if you go onto my website and look at my lifeline, you'll see this. And guess what? It's not going to be smooth sailing either. There's always going to be challenges. The difference is, I'm more geared up now to handle those situations. And the way to get more geared up is continue working on yourself. Continue improving yourself, because that's the only way we're going to get better. So thank you for making the time. And I did go a little off track because my timing didn't work out the way it should be. So I apologize for that if I slipped on there. But I really appreciate every single one of you coming here today. I feel the love and support. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can ask away. Thank you.